guys, what's up? It's Carl Plankens with Plankens Networking, and today we are going to be setting up Windows Server 2008 R2. Now, I will be doing this in a virtual environment, but it is the exact same for doing it on a PC. Whether you're in a virtual environment or doing this on an actual physical machine, there's honestly no difference other than the fact that with a virtual machine, you set up the virtual machine. So right now we're just waiting for it to boot from the boot.ini file. And we'll get started. Should just be a few more seconds. Alright, so we got the boot screen. It should be coming up pretty soon after this. I don't even think it'll make it through the entire splash screen. Alrighty. So once you get to this, you're going to click next right here. You want to make sure you choose your language you want to install. You want to choose your time and currency format, which for us is English, and you want to put in your keyboard input method, which for us is also US. So we're going to click next. We're going to click install. Now for this setup, you'll see it once it loads, we will actually be using, we have an image that has multiple server options to choose from. You can do Windows Server Web Server 2008 R2 Server Core Installation, which is where it's just command prompt and PowerShell. And then you have the Windows Server 2008 R2 Web Server Full Install. But for us, for this video today, we are going to be doing Windows Server 2008 R2, the full installation, because we want to have the UI. So we're going to click next. We're going to accept the license terms. And okay, here, so depending on which option you're doing, this is where you're going to kind of want to think about things. So with Windows Server 2003 R2, you can't upgrade to Windows Server 2008 R2, I believe. I'm not positive on that, so don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that you are not able to upgrade 03 servers to 2008 R2. So depending on what you want to do, this option is going to kind of be something you're going to want to think about. If you want to save space and are fine with doing a fresh install and all your important data is on separate drives or separate partitions, then I personally would go with custom. If you are running Windows Server 2008 and you don't have your data saved on different partitions and it's all on your local C drive, then in that case I would go with upgrade. I also believe upgrading it saves your domain name and everything, but I'm not positive on that either, so don't quote me on it, because I've honestly never upgraded from 2008 to 2008 R2. I've always just done custom because I do not like the fact that it saves the previous Windows files under the C drive. I personally feel like that should be deleted because it's no longer needed, and honestly it's just a waste of space. And when you personally try and go through to delete it, it's kind of a pain. They don't really make it simple to go through and delete the Windows old files, because there's certain things under there you don't have permissions for. Like the trusted installer user account for Windows, most of the time you have to find a way to overwrite the security format for that. So for us, we're going to go with custom in our case, because we are running a fresh install with a brand new hard drive and basically a new machine in this scenario. So we're going to do custom. Once you get to here, you want to click on drive options and select your partition you're going to install it on. We're going to delete that and this one, just so that our partition is starting fresh. So we have an unallocated space hard drive. We're going to click new to create one. This is going to create a separate partition for recovering Windows, which is this 100 megabyte partition right here. So we're going to choose our 74 gig hard drive. Click next. And now we just have to wait for this to install. So while this is installing, it's going to take a little bit. It probably won't be too terribly long, but I don't want to waste the video time. So I I will leave this recording just so you can see what it's doing, but I will be speeding this up. Okay, you guys, so before we get into the setup of the server, I want to walk you guys through what we're going to be doing once we start up the server. So step number 1, like I said, we are going to be setting a complex password that meets the requirements of the complexity passwords. Second thing we will be doing, if this applies to you, we will be activating Windows. Now, if you're just going to use a trial, then you can skip number 2 and just go straight to number 3, which is setting up a time zone. Now, this is something that if it applies to you too, because in some cases it's already set to your time zone, depending on if you are connected to the internet while wiping your server, or if you're just the lucky one that lives in the Pacific and the time zone is set to Pacific by default. So step number 3 is configuring networking. This would be setting a static IP address and setting a static default gateway in your Windows settings. Step number 5, and this is if you want to do it, this isn't something you have to do, would be enabling automatic updates. Personally, for me, I really honestly do not use the automatic updates for my tutorial benches. I use them on my physical machines that I use every day. For example, my primary server and domain controller, I do have automatic updating available on those machines. Now, step number 6 is download and install updates. This is another personal thing. If you want to do it, you can, but don't feel obligated. Now, for for option number 7, or step number 7, I should say, changing the computer name. Now, this is something that I highly recommend because the win-bsh for whatever it is they give you is harder to remember than just doing something simple like SRV01 or DC01 SRV01 or DC SRV01. Something like that would be a lot easier to remember than the Microsoft's default setup for the server names. So number 7, I highly recommend you change your name of your server. Number 8 would be enabling remote desktop. This basically makes it so that you can get to your server from another machine without having to have a screen connected to do some simple tasks like create a new user or something like that. Okay, now step number 9. Oh wait, no, I skipped one, sorry. Step number 8. Oh wait, no, I did do that. Okay, so step number 9 would be restarting your server. After you change your computer name, your computer will need to restart before you can install server rules, server features, or actually I think you can configure the firewall before you restart it. But everything as far as server manager, programs, being able to install stuff like Internet Information Services or file services or DNS or Active Directory, that's all going to have to be done after you restart your server from changing your name. Now, one thing you can do as far as changing the name. On my server, I don't know if some of you noticed when I connect to it, my server name is actually the default Windows name that they gave me down here. And the reason I did it that way with that one is because, personally, I find it more secure to... Sorry, you guys, somebody's calling me. I find it more secure to have it set up that way. Therefore, the fact is, if somebody on my network was watching my videos and, they saw that I had my server name on there, for example, they can see it now, yeah. And I actually probably should have blanked that out, but I'm honestly not too worried about it. I just set it up that way because I was thinking, if somebody does see my computer name and they happen to live by me, my Wi-Fi and that, they hack into it, then that could be a serious problem because they could erase all the data I do have on there. So, personally, I usually just leave my computer name as default one, and then use my host file located under Windows System 32 drivers etc, and then it's just labeled the host file. And I set an IP address and a domain to that server and to that client. That way those names are never released outside. You guys did just see my server name, but I will actually probably be changing that anyways. I'm not too terribly concerned about it, honestly. Okay, so after we restart our server, we're going to be installing our first server role. In our case, that's going to be Active Directory. In your case, it might be something like FTP, File Services, and I don't know why I said FTP. I should have said Internet Information Services or something like that. But so we will be installing our server role. We won't be installing any server features. That is actually, if applicable, I can't talk right now, you guys. That is if it applies to you. And then configuring your firewall, that's also a personal choice. If you want to change something in your firewall or turn it off altogether, that is up to you. So we're going to minimize this now, and we're going to go into our server. Well, I mean not really server, but our client, which is hosting our server. We're going to set a password for it. Oh, whoops. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, so while it is changing the password, we're just going to wait here and wait for it to prepare our desktop. This shouldn't take too terribly long, to be honest with you. Just give it a few seconds and it should get through pretty fast. This is a decently fast computer I'm using right now. I'm probably not even really using a whole lot of resources right now, but out of curiosity, we'll just check it. It is only a Core i5, so it's not terribly fast, but it's not really slow either. Okay, so the first step on our list was to activate Windows. Now for us, we do not have to do this because we will be using the trial for 120 days. So we're going to skip that step and go straight to step number 2 or 3, I don't remember what it was, but changing your time zone, that's what we're going to do. Move that to Mountain Time. Okay, then we're going to configure the networking. For us, this is going to be setting a static IP address. Now for us, personally, before we do this, we're going to make sure that my virtual machine is on my local network. So we're going to run ipconfig and command prompt. And it is connected to my local network, so we're going to exit out of this. And we're going to set the IP address I want it to have. So in our case, this is going to be 192, except for numlock isn't on. 168.1.129. 255.255.255.0 is going to be the subnet. Gateway is going to be 192.168.1.1. The DNS server is going to be 192.168.1.127. And we are going to validate the settings on Activate. We're going to click OK and close. Now this should open up the diagnosing window to make sure that there are no issues with my network connection. This is something you don't really have to do it, but I highly recommend you do it if you are using a virtual machine to install your server on. But that is up to you, and it is completely optional. So it did open it down here. And it didn't identify any issues, so we are connected to the network for sure. Now we're going to come here and provide our server name. In our case, we're going to do DCSRV01. We're going to click OK. OK, and close. We're going to do restart later. Okay, enabling automatic updates. Like I said, this is something you can do if you want to do. It is completely up to you. With this being just a machine I'm going to use for tests and tutorials, I'm just going to turn automatic updates off and completely forget about it, and then close this window. Now downloading and install the updates. It hasn't been updated yet, and like I just said, we're not going to update it. So this is something, if it applies to you, you can do. I'm not going to waste my time doing that right now. I will come down here though and enable my remote desktop. And I am also going to turn off my Windows firewall because this is a bench I'm using for tutorials for YouTube. I'm not really too concerned about somebody hacking into it because it's only going to be on when I'm recording. So for my situation, I'm going to turn it off just so that all my ports are open up to the network. Therefore, I have no issues, port forwarding IIS or port forwarding DNS or DHCP or Active Directory or so on and so forth. So in this case, like I just said, we are going to be using this with the firewall off. Okay, so in our case, that is actually all for the setup. So we don't want to check this yet, but we do need to restart before we do anything. Now, one thing I personally like to do before restarting is I like to change. Oh, actually, I can't change that yet because I haven't installed Active Directory. My bad. Sorry about that, you guys. So we're actually going to close this, and where we have the restart pending, we're just going to do shutdown -R, and this should tell your computer to restart. Now it's going to take about 1 minute before it will restart. It just gives you some time to save your data and everything. I personally just do it this way because when you do the shutdown this way, you have to enter in whatever information, and I personally, it's just faster for me to just do it, and usually I put the time in. I didn't do that this time, so I mean, in this case, it might actually just be faster to do it here, but usually I just do shutdown -R time, I believe it is, or something like that. Okay, so we're just gonna wait for it to boot. While it's booting, I'm actually gonna come through and eject that. Don't need to leave that in there. Okay, so it is started up. We are just waiting for it to load the OS. Shouldn't take too terribly long. Maybe I'll give it a little bit more RAM next round so stuff loads a little bit faster. We're gonna press Ctrl-Alt-Delete. By default, that is already on there. So we're gonna enter in our password. And wait for it to load our desktop. Now, previously I said I was going to do Active Directory. I didn't think about it, but I will be doing Active Directory on here. I'm just going to change the size. As stupid as this sounds, the screen's a little bit too small for me. I'm going to change the size of my screen before I do this. But in order to get this started, we'll wait for the thing to load. Actually, it's more than likely that's what you guys are going to be doing, so we'll do that. Okay, so now we're going to come down here. We're going to add a role. And this rule can be whatever you want, so I'm actually not going to show this part of the video, but I'm going to show you what it is when you pop it up. So here's the entry to it. You can actually just skip this step, which is what we did. Now in your case, you can choose any of these items along here. Now for me, I'm actually going to be doing Active Directory domain services, but I'm actually going to be doing a video on that, so I will not be including that in this tutorial today, but I'm pretty sure you guys get the gist of it. You just basically select it. If not, you guys can watch for the video of me installing it on there, and that'll be up soon. I'll talk to you guys later.